Most people in the music industry think there are two sides to recordings that you make: the recordings themselves and the publishing. We think there are three, the third being the sounds that you make to make music with. In this series, we're decamping to Edinburgh College, a former naval college, to work with a group of students, turning them into entrepreneurs in the business of sound. To prove to you you can make money out of sound, with our eventual goal of raising money for Edinburgh College's music department. In a series of seminars, we hope to help students understand the basics through to the advanced craft that goes into making sound libraries, helping them create their own companies and products to sell, and eventually coming back together as a team to make something big, really big. Watch the seminar in full and download the accompanying resources for free by joining the Crow Hill membership, which is also free. In this third seminar, Christian shows the students the impact of the machine gun effect and round robins.
Up to now, we've been looking at how to make things sound realistic. We started off by using velocities, the difference in timbre between something being played loud and soft. Then I made an utter tit of myself last week not being able to play the bass recorder to demonstrate how you can use an instrument that has different pitches to also create greater reality. And this week I want to concentrate on stuff that is, when you're playing stuff that is repetitive, percussive, there is an effect or an oddity of sampling that we call machine gunning. There was a track right back in the 80s called 19 by Paul Hardcastle, and it had this 19, but it didn't sound like that. It was the same sample being triggered, and it's amazing how immediately, as the human ear goes, that there's something really not right there. There's this machine gun going on. It doesn't really apply to long samples as much, but short samples, it's something that we really need to address. This fucker cost me 80 quid. It's really well machined, it uses a lot of our natural resources, and it sounds like this. I'm going to use an SM57. So 3 round robins off each drum. Here's the kick drum. It's just amazing how absolutely awful that sounds. So let's get all organized on the screen here. This part of the tutorial doesn't matter what DAW you're using. It's basically fundamental stuff. Let me just try and find the different bits. So I hit the microphone on this one, so never say never though. I have ideas, I have ambitions. So we've got our crashes, bottom end on that, hi-hats, and then, wow. So the snare won't sound like a snare, the kick won't sound like a kick, but we do have some relatively honourable toms and kicks. So let me just, for the sake of making life easier further down the line, so kick, rack, 1, stick, 1, sim, a hi-hat of sorts, rack, 2, stick, 2. And then I'm just going to use my transient trick on these, so cut, and you'll see it's kind of giving us a little bit of an automatic numbering system, so we'll put those into the different round robins. So I'm going to build this both in the Logic sampler and the Contact sampler, and there's a contents and you can just jump to the Contact sampler if you're not a Mac or Logic user. What I'm going to do is bring these in by hand into the multi-sampler, so that I can organise them. Let's go one of each of these. The thing I love about the logic sampler is you can bring stuff in direct from the arrange window. What I'm going to do, kick, rack, stick, cymbal, let's go there, doesn't it? Hi-hat, stick 2. So let's have a listen to that. That's just with one individual hit of each, no round robins. I'm actually quite staggered at how bad that kick drum sounds. Okay, let's try and make a meager improvement by duplicating these groups. It's titling those conveniently for me. And what we're going to do is just swap out this stuff. Just want to make sure that those are all the different files. And then finally, round robin 3. Now I'm sure there's much more efficient ways of replacing these samples. If you know of any method, pray tell. Lady hi-hat, Captain Tombleberries. Right, so you're getting your machine gunning, as you would expect off just one sample repeating. So what we need to do is change these groups so they trigger by round robin, and I believe you do that in the group editor. What I tend to do when I go into there is just show all columns, and then you just get a bunch of different options here. And let me go into round robin. Now what that's doing is putting them into different cycles, whereas actually we want that in cycle 1. That is a useful thing for, say, for example, you wanted to just organize your toms into one cycle and your hi-hats into another, but I just want to just cycle around the whole band, end to end. Sounds like utter pants, but that is the principle of recording drums using release triggers. Right, so let's get these samples into Contact. Do not fear the Contact, even if it does start with a very dark and scary black page. What we need is our mapping editor, and then I'm just going to drag them in, all politely labeled. Kick, rack 1. In fact, let me just make it a little bit easier for us. So kick, rack 1, stick 1. It doesn't like being dragged onto the black notes, which is interesting. You have to put it on and then drag them. And then we've got a cymbal, stick that over here, hi-hat over here, and then the second rack, G natural, and stick 2 on E. So that sounds, it's a staggeringly awful sounding kick drum, that. What I'm going to do is set everything up as I would like it to be duplicated throughout the group. So great. And what I'm then going to do is, there's a little thing up here. We make sure that we're in group editor only. If you see down here, group start options, the default is always, so when you hit on a sample in a group, it'll always play. But you can also put it into cycle round robin, and I don't know what these logic things mean. Again, if you have any ideas, that would be most helpful. I'm going to make this RR1. So remember this, it sounds machine gunny. And then what we can do is duplicate these groups. Let's make this RR2. First thing to select is round robin. Let's make it 2. And then we want to change the samples. Contact is not known for its elegance, but I do think this is rather elegant. So if I double click on that, I get the wave editor, and I just move it along to the next one. Where are you, mapping editor? And then let's duplicate that. Obviously, the more round robins you add, the more realistic it gets. But with this kit, I don't think I'd bother, to be honest.
Then Christian got a little bit businessy.
There's so much stuff that we're not going to go into with creating companies. There's so many steps and there's so many costs involved. It's simply not worth it. Now, if any of you hit, is it pay dirt? Yeah. And start earning a lot of money from your efforts, and it's possible, then I would suggest incorporating and all of the costs involved in all of that kind of stuff. But we're not you're not going to have to do that. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to get you to sign something, agree what your splits are within your groups, and then from this thing called audioincubator.com, we will be just sending you money direct into your account. And it may be a few pounds, it may be a couple of hundred, but it may be more. It really depends, I guess, on your concept and the effort that you put into it. But also, there's very much the kind of hitting the zeitgeist, what people want, what is really kind of the spirit of the day. And as I said to you last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I think one of the fun things about sampling is you never really know how these things are going to turn out. I mean, that was bad when I was recording it, but I didn't really know how bad it was going to be until I got it in. But sometimes you get a nice surprise. The one thing I would say that is the most difficult thing in business, and I think many of you have already been in business with other people, it's called being in a band. And band is being in a business. You don't voluntarily go and do a gig and do it for free. You'd prefer to be paid. And the one thing that always splits up bands is the business. It's the share of the rights. It's all of these kind of stuff. That's no different in any business. So it's absolutely paramount that you agree to these things before you start getting money in, because money, and I'm saying this in a way that is, it is a profound statement that is true, and I've seen it time and time again, and this may not apply to this project, but in the future, when money comes in, and when I say money, it's not pocket money, I mean money, it makes people really weird. And people who you thought were your best friends and stuff. So it's just really important to what I've called a prenup. They're called articles of association in companies, but what we will be doing is just doing basically what's called a heads of agreement, which is just basically an agreement between whatever your groups are, so that you've got that clear before the money starts coming in. I think it's just a really important habit to get into.
Remember to subscribe and ding the notification bell to join us on the next one, where Christian turns the students into a sample library. So bring your earplugs.